Hello. Now, given that I've been playing pretty much only ranked for the past 2 weeks, and the fact that there is plus 200% win bonus on EU this weekend, I decided that I wanted to play something else besides ranked. So I took Cleveland, which is, even though I'm getting kind of bored of tier 6 by now because of all the ranked, which is still absolutely one of my favorite ships in the game. This ship is incredibly strong, and I've always considered it the pinnacle of what cruisers kind of should be in this game. Now, given that I decided to take the Cleveland into random battles instead of ranked, the matchmaking is of course less than flattering, or less than encouraging, we might say. I am the only tier 6 on my entire team. In fact, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tier 7s, and everyone else is tier 8. And the same thing is repeated on the enemy team. They only have one single tier 6, which is a Molotov. So from the get-go, this is obviously going to be a hard game. There's also no carrier, which means no easy way of kind of bolstering those XP rewards by shooting down some planes, because that's of course something that the Cleveland is exceptionally good at. So this will be a challenge, to say the least. The map also isn't exactly that kind to let's say, arcing shell cruisers like the Cleveland. There's not really too much cover. There's no real juicy spots where you can park your ship and just like arc your shells over the islands while remaining in cover, the way you usually do in ranked, or the way I recommend you play the ship. You saw when I played the ship in ranked, I pretty much sat in one single spot almost the entire game and just arced shells over that island and kind of carried my team that way. So that's obviously not an option. First of all, that's significantly harder to do in random battles because there's many more enemy ships, which means it's much harder to account for all the angles. Also, it's unlikely that you will maintain your position or be able to maintain your position because the enemy team will most likely push through one of the flanks. So the kind of static gameplay that works in ranked doesn't necessarily work at all in random battles. Now, the enemy Molotov makes the mistake of pushing up, so I open up fire on him. Of course, I make sure I keep angling at all times while I am opening up fire, since the range is only 14.6 on this ship. And in the open with all these tier 8 battleships that can easily shoot anywhere between 18 and 20 and even over 20 kilometers if we're talking like Bismarck and such, I obviously have to play very, very careful. You can see every time I detect it, you can see the priority target number. 3 people focusing me, so 4 people focusing me. So that's kind of the life as a lower tier cruiser in randoms. Well, that's life as a cruiser in general, but when you're lower tier especially, people really love taking pot shots at you because you're kind of just an XP pinata for them. So it's all about playing safe and playing smart. In this case, I realize I'm undetected because of this smoke. Note that I'm angled already away from this guy. I'm moving very, very slowly. I'm maintaining my angle. You might see that I'm moving exactly at a quarter speed. Now, why a quarter speed? Well, first of all, if I do get detected, like I am here, I'm able to accelerate very quickly and I'm able to angle in case someone shoots at me very quickly. The difference between being stationary and moving at a quarter speed is huge. Trying to evade shells when you get spotted while stationary is very hard because it takes you such a long time to go from stationary to moving. Whereas if you're moving at a quarter speed, you already have that initial speed that you can build upon, and you can already do some basic maneuvers like just making sure you don't get citadeled to pieces. So whenever in random battles, whenever I have a position which I consider risky, a position that most likely will not last, like that one there, I make sure that I'm moving at a quarter speed, never fully stopping, mostly at a quarter speed, so that if and when that situation becomes unholdable, when it becomes a liability, I'm able to instantly turn away and dodge, and in that way I won't be caught off guard by these surprising shells. Now, my team has managed to take B and C, which is of course, well, they're about to take B by the looks of it. That's of course good. The issue here is we are losing ships, and even though the enemy team is kind of blobbed up at A, we still have to kill them, we still have to deal with them, and we have to prevent them from taking B, and B is already contested, so obviously this isn't going to be an easy game. However, As of now, I'm quite pleased with my maneuvering. I've dealt about 30k damage maybe, which isn't really that much, but in the early stages of games in random battles, especially if you're lower tier and especially if you're a cruiser, dealing damage in the early game is quite rare, and it's much harder to deal damage in the early game than it is to deal damage later in the game. Because the reason why it's harder is because once again there's so many enemy ships alive, which means there are so many different angles you can get shot from, and especially as a cruiser there's so many different angles you have to take into account, and you can get one shot and deleted and so forth. So being able to deal any sort of damage while so many enemy ships are alive is, I consider it a rarity and not something you should expect to see that often. Alabama pops up, he gets set on fire, he obviously becomes my priority target. However, being a cruiser this close to him, I have no doubt that I am going to become his priority target as well. And I can already see his guns turning, and as you can see, if you look at the bottom left, you can see the angle at which I'm sailing. I'm already sailing away from him, I'm keeping that quarter speed. As soon as the priority target switches to me, I go from quarter speed to full speed and I turn sharply away. And he actually doesn't land any hits at all because of that. So the ability to quickly change your course is very, very important. And the ability, and never being caught with your pants down, that's really what it comes down to. Never get caught not moving. That's what gets you killed. Well, usually. Of course you can get extremely lucky and someone shoots you broadside and you don't get killed, but then you're relying on RNG instead of relying on your own gameplay. And when you start relying on RNG, that's when the game becomes unreliable, unpredictable, and you are just as likely to get instantly deleted as you are likely to be successful. I do land a fire on him just before he gets out of range. There's no way I can chase him. That's also something you need to keep in mind. When you're playing ships with extremely slow shell velocity, we can take the Cleveland here, but other examples are ships like the Atlanta, for example. When you play ships like this, you want to be the one who is chased. You want to be the one who's kiting away, because it's so much easier to shoot someone who's chasing you, because the shells don't need to travel. They don't take as long as travel through the air, since obviously the enemy is sailing towards your shells. Also, you're able to use your range better. The Cleveland, of course, already has very limited range. At 14.6 against tier 8s, the range is pitiful. However, if you try to chase someone, you have to keep in account that you need to aim in front of the ship in order for your slow shells to catch up. So when chasing someone, that 14.6 range probably gets reduced to something like 13.5 because of how slow the shells are. You probably need like 1 kilometer buffer that you need to aim in front of the ship in order for your shells to land. Because I mean, look how long it takes for these shells to land. It takes them such an age that unless you're aiming in front of them, when it comes to chasing others, you are just not very well suited for it. It's not simply a role you do well at. And so here I pick a fight. I know there's a Mogami here, at least. I know this Pensacola is aiming at me, and there's a third number. You can see priority target is showing 3. So I'm expecting there's probably a DD around here somewhere that's also targeting me. So I make sure I maintain my angle at all times, because I know there's more here than just the Pensacola. This is of course a mistake. If you're trying to surprise someone, don't keep him targeted. If he runs priority target like I do, then he knows that you're there. You literally show up as a number on the priority target thing. So thanks to these guys targeting me, I knew they were here. Now the Akatsuki gets cocky. He knows there's this Mogami is here, he knows the Pensacola is here. He thinks that with all 3 of them shooting me, they will be able to take me down. And so he shot at me quickly, and he's obviously regretting it now, and I've set him on fire, which means he won't be able to get undetected as quickly as he would like. He stopped firing and he's trying to survive. He only shot once, but that was pretty much all he needed to do, and I don't think he really has much of a chance. Well, he's trying to get away, but that fire is going to burn him down. Never mind, I hit him. So even with, even with the Pensacola and the Mogami shooting me, I'm continually kiting away. And this is of course what you should be doing. This gives you as the Cleveland the upper hand. The enemy shells have to travel a longer way, whereas your shells have an easier time landing because they travel your way. And even though you're only at tier 6, thanks to IFHE and the fact that you have 12 guns, the amount of DPM you can pump out is very, very impressive. And that's of course what I'm using here now. You note that Mogami has completely stopped firing. That Scharnhorst popping up from the flank kind of scared him away. I'm firing a few more volleys blindly into the general direction. I do land a couple more, but sadly no fire. Ideally, of course, I would have wanted to fire because that would have negated his stealth, but I'm unable to get it. Now, I'm not going to turn around and chase him. That is stupid. If a Mogami is undetected, first of all, if I start chasing him, then first of all I negate the advantage I have, which is the whole thing of being chased. And I give that advantage to him in return. Trying to chase a Mogami, doing the same thing as I'm doing here, running away and just spamming HE backwards, is going to get you killed. It's something you should absolutely never do. So I'm obviously not going to turn around and try to chase him. Second of all, Mogami also has torpedoes, so if I turn around and chase him, I also risk sailing right into his torps. And third of all, there is a Bismarck that is popping up. You can see Bismarck who was shooting at us earlier. So obviously we want to start shooting him. He will be our next target. I'm not in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry to get to him. No, I'm waiting patiently for him to get to me. So I let the Scharnhorst take the initial heat. I know that the Mogami is somewhere nearby, so I really don't want to be turning back. I want to keep sailing away, but I'm just slowing down enough for this Bismarck to catch up. You note once again, look at my speed. I'm moving at a quarter speed. I mentioned that earlier. Why do I move at quarter speed? Because I want the Bismarck to catch up to me more. There's the torps that I spoke about, that's why I didn't start chasing the Mogami. So I want to be moving at quarter speed because I want him to catch up to me, because I want to be able to land more shells. The closer he is, the easier it is for me to land these shells, especially as long as he's targeting the Scharnhorst. And because the Scharnhorst is so close, he's obviously going to be the priority concern for this Bismarck, since the Scharnhorst can YOLO him and torp him and all of this. Yeah, Bismarck has stopped. You see my shells aimed in front of him are no longer even hitting him. I think he's stopped, and he might even try to be reversing away, afraid of those torpedoes, so I have to aim a bit higher. And this is thanks to the fact that I'm still moving very, very slowly. I haven't sailed away from his range. I haven't left him behind, which I would do if I moved at full speed. Looking at that sharp angle I have, it's obviously to make sure that if he does turn his guns on me, he won't get any easy shells. He's completely occupied with the Scharnhorst though, so I'm obviously just raining down fire on him. I got 2 unrepairable fires, he repaired it earlier, and I'm just continually harassing him. And this is what you want to do. When you play any cruiser, especially a heavy DPM cruiser like the Cleveland, you want to be dealing damage as much as possible. There are of course some exceptions like radar cruisers who want to sneak up and use the radar to be more efficient, and there are other exceptions like ships with very long reloads but with heavy hitting guns want to maybe use the AP to surprise ships. But ships like the Cleveland, which are pure DPM focused, you just want to be shooting at all times. So I closed the distance while this Scharnhorst was dying. Now, as soon as the Scharnhorst is dead though, of course I start sailing away. I turn away and I once again start kiting. Yes, he's low. Yes, I'm probably going to kill him, but there's absolutely no point in risking my health by getting closer to him before I kill him. Always treat an enemy as a threat until the second they are dead. It's so often you see someone play really well and wreck an enemy ship, and then just before the enemy ship dies, they give full broadside to the enemy ship, and the enemy ship with his dying volley lands a couple citadels and absolutely wrecks them. So all that great play that you did kind of goes out the window in the very last seconds. This is very, very common. You often see it in battleship fights as well, this guy's going to die anyway, I can give him full broadside, and then they hit the double citadel or something, and then they're so crippled that it might even lose the game later on. Don't do that, it's unnecessary, it's stupid. I wait for the Pensacola to get close, I use my stealth, and of course I want this Pensacola to angle. I use AP here. Well, first of all, he's giving broadside, which means AP is very good against him. But more importantly, I want to scare him with AP, and I want to make him start angling, because if he uses all his guns, the Pensacola has a significant amount of firepower, and he does have quite a lot of health. So obviously, I don't want him to be able to use all those guns. I want him to be afraid of that AP threat. So I want him to angle, because if he angles, he can only really bring his front 2 guns to bear. And that's exactly what he's doing now, and I can start hammering him with HE in this case. Note that I did not repair the broken turret. This is very important. Why didn't I repair the broken turret? Because fires are such a huge deal. In cruiser versus cruiser fights, it's all about starting fires. And if you blow your repair early on in a cruiser versus cruiser duel, you're probably going to lose it. Because all the enemy cruiser needs to do is spam HE and get a couple fires. And even if you manage to kill him, the fires will take you with him. So always sit on your repair as long as possible in a cruiser versus cruiser fight. Even if it means you eat like a double fire and you eat a couple of ticks of that double fire, drawing that repair out as long as possible gives you a significant advantage in any sort of cruiser battle, especially if you fight someone who's good. Now once again, I repeat pretty much the process you have seen me do multiple times this game. I close the distance, and then before I shoot, I start turning and angling, and by the time I shoot and my shells are in the air towards him and he sees me, I'm already angling away from him. That is the basic of how to play Cleveland. Well, Mogami fits this very well as well, and many other slow shell cruisers fits this kind of playstyle very well. But it's especially important on the Cleveland, especially of course when we face higher tiers. He is focused on someone else, once again, dropping my speed to quarter. Never full stop, never ever full stop. Full stop is the devil. So many times I've seen people full stop and then get caught completely off guard. No, you slow down, you don't stop. You see he's targeting me now, and because we're not full stop, we don't really have that many issues accelerating and making sure that we're not in an easy target. Sadly, I wasn't able to get this kill. I would have really liked to get this kill to get a chance for a Kraken, but I don't think I'm gonna have much of a chance now. Mogami, 10k health. I can afford to turn in towards this guy, I think. Well, not just because I have the Pensacola helping me, but because his health pool is so low. Of course, when I say push into something like a Mogami, I don't mean rush right into him, rush close to him. You never want to give your opponent an advantage in a fight. And if you go into brawling range with a cruiser that doesn't have torps against a cruiser that does have torps, well, obviously you're putting yourself at an unnecessary disadvantage. Note that I got a fire, but he still remained undetected until he shot, which means he instantly repaired the fire, as you have seen now. So usually against the Mogami, when I start getting this close, I would be very tempted to switch to AP, but I am sticking to HE simply because of that one fire that he repaired. He blew it too early. Also note that this Mogami is shooting someone else, but I am still constantly targeted. That tells me that the Amagi that's still alive is in fact shooting me. So I constantly change my course slightly. I make sure I remain angled towards where I expect the Amagi to be, which is in the enemy spawn. It's very important to give notice of priority target. I say there goes my Kraken, because, well, I needed to kill him and then kill the Amagi, but honestly I don't think I had any chance of getting the Kraken at this point. I needed to get the Gneisenau earlier to have an even chance at it, because the Amagi is still so far away. He was exactly where I expected though, and that's of course why I angled. No point shooting towards him here, because the game is about to tick out. And that was pretty much a I would say pretty clinical explanation of how to play the Cleveland in general. Now, looking at the score, 165,000 damage, which is of course very nice, and well, say 15k XP. This is of course thanks to the daily bonus that I mentioned. The reason why I'm mostly playing random battles this weekend. There's a 200% bonus XP, and this daily win bonus of course also affects your free XP. So if you got any of those Ouroboros flags, you got Papa flags, you should be stacking them on all your ships and getting the daily wins, because that multiplies heavily. As you can see, 10k free XP for a single game. This is exactly the time when you should be using all these flags you have been saving up, because this is where you get those big rewards. Base XP wise, well, it's 2.6k. Normally I wouldn't consider it that special of a number, but considering I was only tier 6 and it was a quite Cleveland unfriendly map, I'm very satisfied with the result. It's always amusing to be the lowest tier and still top the scoreboard. And of course, detailed report, only 760k potential damage. And that's of course, people often ask me, why don't people shoot at you that much? And that's because I always make sure Well, it depends, of course. Sometimes when people, I have some big fans who constantly focus fire on me, it doesn't happen. But in games like this, for example, I always made sure I made an unattractive target. If you have to pick between a Cleveland who's angled away, who's sailing away from you at a steep angle, and someone else who's right next to you giving you broadside, of course you're going to shoot at the guy who's giving you broadside instead. And that's really what playing cruises like this comes down to. You want to make yourself as unattractive as a target as possible. So when they see you, they go like, I could shoot this guy, but I won't really do much damage, so it's not worth it. I'd rather shoot this other guy. And that's kind of what, that mentality is what you want to play into. You want to make them rather shoot that other guy than take a pot shot at you. 80k to the Bismarck, which is pretty amusing, of course. Almost 100k in pure HE. Very little AP damage this game, considering we maintained our distance so much. That's not really surprising. And 63k fire damage, once again, not surprising either. Credits and XP wise, of course, we made 36k Captain XP, which is pretty nice. I wasn't really running all the bonuses I could for Captain XP, considering I don't think I even ran... Did I run? I did run the Dragon Flag, but I didn't run all the bonuses. Still though, that's also a nice chunk thanks to this daily bonus. So whenever there's daily bonuses like this, guys, try to make sure you get your daily wins on as many different ships as possible, since the bonuses you get can be very, very rewarding. Anyway, that was my Cleveland commentary. I won't bother going over the build, since I've already showed both my ranked and random build in previous commentaries. I can link them in the comment below. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you guys have a good weekend.